Good day, my student. It's nice for me to be here. I believe that you are keeping yourself safe from this pandemic disease. So, this is Mr. Moibi once again. What we are going to discuss today is budgets. Budget. But before I go to the budget, I would like to make reference to our previous lesson. In our previous lesson, we discussed about government revenue. And government revenue can be defined as total income that accrue to all levels of administration, or you can say that accrue to all levels of government, maybe state, local, or federal. So, and this public revenue includes capital revenue, or you can say irregular revenue or irregular receipt, or you can, and the second one is recurrent recurrent revenue, recurrent revenue. So, or you can say recurrent receipt. Then we also discussed about government expenditure. We discussed about government expenditure refers to the total income incurred by public authorities at all levels of administration or at all levels of government, maybe local government, states, or federal government. So then this government expenditure includes capital expenditure, or you can say recurrent expenditure. So that's what we discussed in our previous lesson. But today, we want to look at government budgeting. We want to look at government budget. So, but before I proceed with this topic, I would like to share this lesson objective with you. At the end of the lesson, students should be able to define government budget. Two, state the uses of budget. Three, describe the functions of budget. Then, lastly, explain the types of budget. So that's what we're going to look at today. Then let us look at the definition of budget. When you're talking about budget is a financial statement of the estimated revenue, the estimated income that government received, and expenditure of government, expenses government incur during for a period of time, during a particular period of time. Then there have to be what? Usually 1 year. So there's need for the government to make budgets for a particular year. So then budget can also be defined as a document. You can call it a document containing details estimate of government expected revenue. So the expected revenue from the expected revenue and proposed expenditure in a year. So then this budget is also the future plan of action, the future plan for any country. So that is why there's need for the government for a particular country to make what is called budget. Then let us look at the uses of this budget, what they are making, what they are using the budget to do, what they are using budget to do in the country. One, or you can say importance of or uses of budget. So the first one is budget is used to allocate resources. They use budget to allocate resources from one sector of the economy to another. So government are doing there, they make sure that they distribute income to different sectors of the economy or to different states of the country. So that is what the first one. Then second one, budget. They also use budget as a medium to communicate our economic objectives. So they use it to communicate the economic objective or the policies to the people living in that particular country. So they use budget to do that as well. They use to communicate on the economic objectives and the policies to its people as well. So then budget is also used to foster economic growth. They use budget to develop the economic of the country and to ensure that the economic growth is attainable. So in the country. So that is what the third one. Then the fourth one, budget is also used by the government. Budget is generally used by government to control inflation and deflation in the country. You know what inflation we will discuss about in our week 3. that inflation can be defined as a persistent increase in the general price of goods and services. Then, when we are talking about the deflation, that is opposite of inflation, that is continuous, fall in the price of goods and services. So, budget makes sure that they control the inflation and deflation in the country as well. So, let us look at the types. We have only three types of budget. We have surplus budget. What we are talking about surplus budget is a type of budget in which proposed revenue of the government for the year is more than the proposed expenditure. So the expected revenue is more than the proposed expenditure. When the revenue, the income the government receive is more than what the government will incur in a year, that is surplus. That is surplus. What the government realizes is more than what they spend in a particular year. That is surplus. Then the reserve of the country increases when there will be more, there will be reserve for that particular country. Then that is when we are talking about when there is a reserve. This will increase the economic and development of the country. So then we also have deficit budgets. A deficit budget occurs when expected expenditure incurred uh, by the is incurred by the expected revenue. So when the expected expenditure is more than the expected revenue, so we can say is deficit. That is deficit budget. What the government incur as an expenses is more than what the government realize as an income. So that is deficit. You can also say that it is the excess of government's total expenditure over its income. Excess of government total expenditure over it. That means government expenditure is simply is more than the income. Then this budget deficit is usually financed by borrow. Any country that is having deficit budget, there's need for them to borrow. Whether they will borrow from the whether it's internal borrowing or external borrowing. When we are talking about internal borrowing, that is to borrow within the country, or external borrowing outside the country. So the government can decide to borrow from the International Monetary Fund or International Reconstruction for bank and for bank, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. That's IBRD. So, or World Bank. Government can do that. Then let us look at the balanced budget. A balanced budget is when the estimated revenue is equal. When we have been talking that when revenue is more than expenditure, that is surplus, or when expenditure is more than the income, that is deficit. But under this one, when we are talking about balanced budget, this is when the estimated revenue is equal to the estimated expenditure. So it's equal. The government revenue is 500 million naira, and they are able to spend 500 million. That is balanced budget. So that's balanced budget. Then this balanced budget is a situation where planned expenditure and planned revenue are equal. So it's the same thing. They spend 500 million naira and they also realize 500 million. That's balanced budget. So in this type of budget, there won't be any inflation or deflation as we talk about under the deficit. So then let us look at the functions of a budget. Then budget is used to control government revenue and expenditure. They use budget to control government revenue and expenditure. So there is need for them to control the government revenue and expenditure. Second one, it helps the government to plan its expected revenue and expenditure. So this make government to plan towards the expected revenue as well as expenditure. Then thirdly, it helps to stimulate economic activities of the country. So they use it to it also help it assists to make sure that the economy of the country is stable. So that is it. Then fourthly, it also helps to correct balance of payment deficit. So the balance of payment deficit they will use budget to control it, so there won't be any economic imbalance in the country. So then, lastly, on my screen here, they also use budget for policy formation and execution in case if they want to uh, do that. So that is what they use the budgets to do. Then we want to look at the next one, national or public debt. You can call it public debt or national debt. When I'm talking about debt, debt refers to the debt a country owns to its citizens. When we are talking if the country is own its citizens, that is internal debt, and or other countries, or that's organized. Then if it's other country, that is external debt. So it's as simple as national debt can be defined as a debt a country owns to its citizens or other countries or organizations, like International Monetary Fund. I've talked about that, and World Bank. Then the debt which a country owes its citizens is known as internal debt, while the debt owed foreign government and organization is known as external debt. Internal debt is a debt that's it's a debt a country is owned a particular, within the country, uh, or its citizens, or maybe the debt that they are owing central bank is an internal debt, but a debt that the country is owing the foreign government, like Ghana. If Nigeria is owing Ghana, that's external debt, or USA or USS or Russia. So that is external debt. So that is external debt. Then let us look at the instrument or sources of government borrowing. Want to look at the way in which government can borrow from maybe internal or external. Maybe they can borrow internal uh, within or outside the country. Then the government of Nigeria can use the following instrument to borrow money. The first one they can use is to use treasury certificates. And when you're talking about treasury certificates, these are securities for medium-term borrowing for media. This is not short term. When I'm talking about short term, within a year they have to repay this loan. Then when I'm talking about medium, medium simply means they have to borrow maybe after 1 year or more than 1 year. So, and they must have what is called collateral security. You can see these are for a period of 1 to 2 years, or maybe there will be what? Higher interest of interest. There will be higher interest on this treasury certificate than the treasury bill. You are still coming to treasury bill. Treasury bill, these are securities used for short term, but treasury certificate is for medium term or long term borrowing. So thereby you can repay that loan for 1 year or 2 years, or more, even more than 2 years, depending on the agreement of the for the both parties. So then the treasury bills, these are securities used for short-term borrowing. That short-term borrowing has to be 90 days. Minimum is 90 days. And when we are looking about 90 days, that is 1.5 months. So that's 90 days. 90 days, that should be around 3 months. Yes, 3 months. I'm sorry, that is 3 months. Then this carries low interest of interest. It carries low interest of interest. It's not unlike a treasury certificate that carries higher interest of interest. So that is for. Let us look at national savings scheme. Government can also borrow money from national savings scheme to finance its projects. So government can borrow money from the national savings scheme. They are doing that because of what? They want us to finance the huge project or large project, or can I say capital project. So government can do that as well. Then we also have development stock. This are refers to as government stock, and they are used for long-term borrowing of up to 5 years. So, and this was even more than treasury certificate or treasury bills. when we are talking about development stuff. That means it's allowed for them to borrow minimum of 5 years and above. So if it's under the development stuff. Then lastly here, under the instrument, we have negotiation. The government can borrow from external financial institutions like Paris Club, International Monetary Fund, and maybe as well as a World Bank. So there should be a negotiation between the a country and another country. Both of them need to come together to agree on the payment of this loan. So that is for the negotiations. Then let us look at the reasons why government borrow. I want to look at the reasons why government borrow. Uh, Government borrow internally and externally to finance budget deficit. So the government borrow, they can borrow within the country or outside the country. They are doing that because they want to finance or they want to embark or they want to correct what is called budget deficit. You know, that is the government is not making profit again, they are making loss. So that simply means what they spent in a year is more than what they realize as an income. So that is one of the reasons why government also borrow me money from the other countries. Then money can be borrowed by governments to enable you to finance some huge capital project. So government borrow, because of what they want to ensure that they finance what large capital project. So they look at large capital project that they want to do, and there's no money in the government purse. The best thing for them is to borrow from the maybe Paris Club or any other place. Then government can embark on borrowing to enable it to meet the cost of national emergencies. So government can borrow if there's a war, you can borrow, or if there's anything that happen, riot or hurricane or droughts. So government and etc. and so on. So government can ensure that they can borrow like this country now. When there's no money to buy, to buy weapons for our army, then government also can borrow from outside for them to buy the I mean for them to buy this weapon for them so that they can use it to fight this Boko Haram. So government as well can do that. They can borrow because of that. Then government can decide to reduce the economic burden. So when by the time they look at it that the taxpayer are suffering seriously, then the government can decide to borrow so that the borrowing they are doing, it will relieve the taxpayers so that by borrowing money, so they can use it to execute some proposed project or some capital project in the country. So then lastly, government can borrow money to enable you to correct or execute balance of payment deficit. That's one of the reasons as well. Government borrow so that they can be able to correct or reduce balance of payment deficit. Then government may equally borrow to establish certain projects, certain capable of generating employment opportunity for the people. Government can borrow and set up what is called industrialization in the country. And government can borrow to ensure that they set up many industries. We have graduates more than thousands in a year, every year, and there's no industry government has created for this youth that are coming out from the university. So government can also borrow money in order to set up what is called industry, to set up many industry for the youth that are coming out from that are just coming from the National Youth Service, NYSA. So government can do that. Government can also borrow money in order to serve another loan. So if government is owing France loan, then they can also borrow money from the World Bank in order to what? To service this the loan that they are owing France. So they can borrow money, either they can borrow from internal and external sources. Then Any a fall in expected income may warrant a government when when government is not generating income like the way they are generating for the past 5 years. Then what they will do is to borrow money. So by the time they borrow money, they will be able to meet up with this required fund to finance this capital project. So my student, this is what I have for you this today. I believe that you are keeping yourself safe. Please keep yourself safe. Then uh, don't forget, go to the school website. By the time you go there, you will see your note on this topic. Then make sure that you go through the textbook on this topic, that is essential economics for senior secondary school by Code Esson. So I wish you best of luck. My students, please keep yourself safe from this